Hey everybody, it's Misha here, and today we're doing a review, or not really a review, a talk today about Josh Johnson. Josh Johnson is one of my favorite, underrated, under-talked about baseball pitchers of all time. Why? Because he had a really great career that was curtailed by injuries, and because he was pitching primarily in Florida for most of his career, at the time, the Florida Marlins, now the Miami Marlins, you can see he was rocking the Florida, hat. I wish they would go back to that. I think it makes a lot of sense to have the Florida, like F and then, fins and everything. Like, I wish they would go back to Florida. I understand Miami probably does better for marketing and everything, but tangent aside, look at this 24.3 career WAR, 58 wins, 45 losses, with a 3.40 ERA. And in his career, he made 160 career starts. So let's look at his career statistics here, okay? Guys, this is a really, really good MLB pitcher, especially if you look at this peak. So I'm going to just focus on 2009 through 2011 here. And over this 3-season period, if you look at this, okay, per season, he had on average 5.5 WAR here. And if you remember looking at the table before, he had a couple seasons there where it was like 7 WAR and 6 WAR, and then one where he was injured. But overall, we're talking summary aggregate stats right here to start. And he had a 2.64 ERA. On average, he made 23 starts a year over that 3-year span, so he was injured. He pitched about 151 innings, average over those 3 years. And if we look at his FIP, 2.74, strong whip, strong strikeout rate, 8.6. He wasn't walking a ton of hitters. This is a really, really solid stretch. Unfortunately, though, injuries eventually ended Josh Johnson's career. And he had a good comeback in 2012, but then he went over to Toronto, and he never was quite the same after kind of getting shelled in 2013. And he started to get, on the older end of his career. I was always rooting for him to possibly make a comeback, but even though it never happened for him, it's worth calling out just how impressive this career was. And I focus on this 3-year consecutive peak here, okay? But if I want to zoom out just a bit and have a little bit more perspective, right? He was substantially injured. Sorry about that. Go back to starting by season. He was substantially injured, in 2007 and 2008. He missed half the season and pretty much the entire 2007 season. But he had a really good, essentially, rookie year, a near 4 WAR, which if you think about like what people are talking about on Reddit and Twitter and the YouTube talking heads, right? When someone has near 4 WAR, they're usually referred to as a solid number 2, number 3 upstart pitcher. That's how people are talking about like Cam Schindler and, Adam Warren before, right? And then Josh Johnson ended up delivering on this, very much delivering. He peaked into essentially a 7 WAR a year pitcher. Guys, that's crazy. Okay, and if we look at just this 2-year period here, 2.3 ERA, that's the peak that he had in terms of his dominance, I feel like. 2.4 win whip. He was 5th in Cy Young voting. Let's zoom into this. I think Roy Halladay definitely deserved to win that season. But just to kind of showcase our point. Roy Halladay, 8.5 WAR. Ubaldo Jimenez, 7.5 WAR. Josh Johnson here, guys. Josh Johnson, 7 WAR. If you look at this and you actually look at the voting total, Adam Wainwright arguably, probably should be below Josh Johnson. He ended up finishing 5th, but essentially, you take Roy Halladay away here. It's neck and neck, I feel like, in terms of who would deserve it, Ubaldo Jimenez or Josh Johnson. And if you're looking at this and going, well, the ERA is a lot better for Josh Johnson, you do have to factor in this season, Ubaldo Jimenez was really, really, really good. He had 19 wins, 221 innings, so he had 40 more innings than Josh Johnson, and he had 2.88 ERA in Colorado. So Ubaldo definitely deserved to be near the top of the vote. But my point is, Josh Johnson was 5th in Cy Young voting that year. He arguably could have been 2nd or 3rd. And even though he never really got back to that peak period in the 2010 to 2011 era, you know, he ended up having a 162 game average over his career where he has 5 WAR, 12-9 record. Okay. 189 strikeouts here. Just zoom in so you guys can see the columns we're looking at. Strikeouts here. Career FIP of 3.32. Career strikeouts per 9 of 8.3. So, I'm going to end it there, guys. I just wanted to point out, though, that many times we don't appreciate some of the best players that we have the privilege to watch. Why? Because sometimes they are in lower profile markets. Sometimes they don't get the pitch in the postseason. You know, Josh Johnson never made a playoff start. Sometimes they also, you know, just have a career where, you know, sometimes it's trendy on social media. You'll see Hall pretty good, and some other accounts will kind of talk about this where like they'll recognize players that were, you know, rather good but not quite Hall of Fame worthy. Well, that's a neat gimmick. And some players are more popular and talked about than others. But who's talking about Josh Johnson? I don't see anyone talking about Josh Johnson. No offense to Josh Johnson. I say this as a compliment to Josh Johnson. The reason I'm making this video is because Josh Johnson had a really, really great MLB career. And I think that's worth calling out. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did, please give this a like, share, subscribe. My name is Misha, Turtle Island. We do sports, news, gaming, technology, everything in between, even some turtle nature videos and stuff on film, geese, squirrels, you name it. So make sure to check it all out on my channels. Later, guys.